Hey there, my name's Taylor. This is a recap of the Turbo Velo Tuesday night crit on May 14th in Richardson, Texas, here at Breckenridge Park. As you can see, we had beautiful weather. It was pretty warm though, in like the 90s maybe. So warm for Texas, it's springtime, it's warming up. And this is the first time I've had a rear camera for these recap videos, so I hope you enjoy the rear view there, as well as the normal front view and all the stats and everything. So this is the point of the video where I start throwing out excuses. I have not been riding my bike much in the past 2 months because back in November, my son was born, and in the past couple months, both he and I have been sick on and off, so haven't had a lot of time for training, and when I have had the time, I haven't been feeling super well. So I was very happy to be back out on the racetrack to be, trying to hang with the pack on one of the normal Tuesday night crits. And this is the C race, the Cat 4-5 race, so this usually doesn't move too fast, but right now you can see that we're going about 27 miles an hour, and this pace kept up for most of the race, which is crazy fast for this event. So very fast event, and I'm out of shape, so as you can imagine, I didn't place too well. But my strategy at the beginning of this race, the thing I was trying to keep in my head the whole time I was out here was try to think of myself as the weakest rider on the course, and how do I place well given that constraint. So like, if I see a gap, I'm not going to try to close it down, but I'm going to try to put myself in a position where I can place well without trying too hard. So for me, that meant trying to be in the middle of the pack, both middle front to back and middle side to side, because there's so many people out here. There's a lot of riders across the field. I want to be in the middle, so I'm shielded from the wind and from the sides. You may be able to tell I'm not accomplishing that super well at all times here, but that was my goal. And one of the reasons that I struggled with doing that in this race is that I haven't raced in a while, and I haven't raced a lot this season, so I wasn't super comfortable hanging on to the wheel of the bike in front of me. You'll notice there's a lot of times where I am several feet or perhaps even bike lengths away from the person in front of me, or they start taking off and I don't latch onto their wheel right away. And I knew these were mistakes, and I knew that I was making them at the time, but it's really hard to build up that confidence to stay, just a few inches or maybe a foot behind the person in front of you. It's really nerve-wracking to be out there going 25 to 28 miles an hour and be that close to the person in front of you. So hopefully I'll get that skill back with time, but for now, I'm just happy to be out on the course, riding around and not crashing. I wanted to highlight here that this is maybe a good example of what I was talking about, where I'm in the middle of the pack. There's somebody in front of me, there's somebody to the side of me, so I'm pretty sheltered here. And you can see these guys in front of me, they're like standing up and basically sprinting on this part, which is really strange because this is only lap 2. This is an against the wind uphill section. People push super hard and then start coasting up here, and I have to hit the brakes to not run into the back of the group. So for me, as like a long distance road rider, I'm thinking, well, why don't you just maintain 200 watts the whole time instead of surging up to 800 and then back down to 0? But it's a bike race, so people are going to do what they're going to do, and they're trying to make a break. But this was a little frustrating for me because I didn't have the power, honestly, to stick to the wheel of the person in front of me, or at least not without blowing myself up. And I was trying to stay in the race the whole time. I didn't want to push too hard to close down a gap and then drop myself out of the race because I'm totally gassed. Like I said, my mindset today was, imagine I'm the weakest rider in the race. How do I hang in and not get last place? Here's another good example of the type of positioning I was trying for in the race, where I'm in the middle of the group. I know that there's a lot of riders in front of me, but I also know that there's no breakaway at this point, and so I'm happy to just sit in the middle of this big group here. But also I wanted to show this part through this S-turn, this kind of chicane on the course, because with this many riders, I think almost 60 started this race, or maybe that was the B race. There's a lot of riders, and there's 4 or 5 riders wide, which means when people go through these corners, people will slide to the inside and then try to hit the apex and slide back to the inside, or it just, there's weird lines going through here. And a lot of these riders are new, but even for the experienced guys, sometimes they'll veer off the line a little bit. And fortunately, there were no crashes and no, rubbing even between riders as far as I know, but it still really keeps you on your toes and on the brakes as you're going through these corners, because you don't want to run into somebody by assuming that they're going to stick to a particular line through the curve. As usual, my brother Rusty was also in this race. He just came on screen on the left side there in the blue-green jersey that I'm also wearing. And his strategy in these races, especially recently, has been tail gunning. So trying to stay at the back of the pack and only putting in big efforts when there's a gap that needs to be closed down to close down that gap. So we were talking about strategy on our way over to the race, and he said, I told him I'm going to try to stay in the middle of the pack. He said he's going to tail gun. So if I see him go past me, that's a good sign to me that I'm actually at the back of the group, not in the middle, and I need to push a little harder to move up. So you can see in the review there's not too many people behind me. There's a lot of people in front of me, and seeing my brother kind of make an appearance there let me know, okay, might need to try a little harder to move up here. Just about a lap later, kind of the same thing happens. My brother is passing me on the left here. You can't see him, he's hidden by this other rider. There he is. And if you look in the rear view, there's not too many people behind me. I know at this point I'm falling off the back of the pack, but I just don't have it in my legs for this race to catch up. So I was pushing maybe in between 200 and 300 watts, and my heart rate is in the 170s, which is extremely high for me. Before this race, I thought that my max heart rate was about 180, 182 beats per minute. But during this race, it got up to 186, which I think is a consequence of me being sick and not training too much. But all that to say that when I see the group going away from me right here, and I'm only doing around 200, 250 watts, in my mind, I'm thinking back to last season, and I'm like, oh yeah, just surge up to 400 watts and close that down. But I'm already maxed out. I just cannot push any harder. So I'm doing everything I can just to kind of stay in the vicinity of the pack. But still, they're getting away from me. And I think this is actually the point in the race where a break forms, and basically the peloton splits into two, and I hang with the backpack. My brother made it from his tail gunning position up to the front pack, so kudos to him for executing well on a strategy. But you can see my heart rate is at least 180 here. One of the changes that I made recently to my bike setup was my cycle computer used to have all kinds of stats on it. So I could see like time and distance and power and speed and heart rate. And I changed it so that during the crits, the only things that I see on there are the 3-second average power, the total time of the race, and the current lap number. And really, I would get rid of the lap number, but you have to have 3 data points on my head unit, so I picked that one as the third. But the key thing for me was getting rid of heart rate as a data point on my head unit, because it was never something that positively impacted my race or my riding, especially in the crits, because normally I like it on my head unit because if I'm doing like a Z2 ride, I want to make sure I don't blow up. But during the crit, the whole point is to blow up, in a sense. And invariably, what would happen is that I would see my heart rate getting close to what I thought my max was. So it would be like, 170, 175. And I would think, oh boy, I better slow down. Not that like I'm trying too hard. I don't feel like I'm trying too hard or I'm putting down too much power or anything like that. Just that number is too high and I want it to go down. So I took that number off of my head unit, and as a result, I've had multiple races where my maximum heart rate has gotten higher than I thought it could. So if you're like me and you like having stats and you like having them available on your head unit, try taking heart rate off of there and don't even think about it during the race. Think about your power, think about how many laps are left to go, and think more about strategy than heart rate. Because although I didn't place too well in this race, I was really happy with how much I pushed myself in this race. So try it out, let me know what you think. Right here, I'm at my max heart rate. I'm several bike lengths away from the group in front of me, but I know this is my only chance. This is like the chase group off the back of the front peloton. And if I don't latch on to this group, then I'm gonna have a miserable time doing a time trial for the rest of this crit. So it doesn't look like it since I'm only doing 150 watts or something like that, but I'm trying super hard to catch on to the back of this little group of riders so that I have a chance to place well in this race and not just make it this miserable solo ride. Fortunately, it seems to work for me. I'm able to hang on barely to the back of this group, but we'll see in the rest of the race how it goes. About a lap later, you can see I'm still in the chase group. I'm at the back of it, but I'm still in it. And the chase group isn't, working together super well. You can see we're 4 riders wide right here, and everyone's kind of doing their own thing. But at least we're still together, and that means that I am able to hang in this race and stay in the draft a little bit, keep going fast without totally burning myself out. So if you find yourself at the back of the race like I was, try to find a group and hang with them, because it's much better than riding by yourself. After an uneventful couple of laps, here we are on the last lap, going down the straightaway. I haven't talked about the wind yet. It wasn't very windy, but if there was any wind, it was coming from the south, which means going into the wind right here on this straightaway. And for some reason, I'm kind of behind this guy, but I'm not really behind him. And I'm just eating wind on the last lap for no reason. So shame on me, but as you can see, my heart rate is at or above what I thought my max heart rate was. So I am cooked, just totally trying to survive at this point and clearly not thinking. So if you find yourself in this situation, or future me, just get behind somebody. You don't have to be out in the wind. It'll be a lot easier. We're going to keep going through the end of the race here. So I've basically been hanging on to this group, but I'm at the max of my effort. So at this point, the group is trying to, or the people in the group are trying to get to the front so that they can sprint to the finish and get some good placement, at least in the chase group. There's probably 20 or 30 riders in front of us, but I've got nothing left. I can't go any harder than I have been going just to hang with this group, which means all of them are going to surge past me and I am going to limp over the finish line, which I'm totally fine with at this point. I'm really happy that I hung with this chase group for as long as I did, but you can see there's a big gap and it's growing, and I'm just trying to make it across the finish line. It looks like I'm not trying at all here, but I am chugging, I am trying. It's just not going anywhere. And this is what's left of my sprint at this point. I can muster about 100, 150 watts. But I was super happy with my performance today. After not riding for 2 months and not riding much before that, I was happy to just, be out here riding. Here's the stats from the ride, and here's the Strava stats. Links to both will be in the description. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you out there next time.